My name is Mia Langston. To my co-workers at St. Clair Medical Center, I'm just another office employee, third floor, in charge of insurance files and patient billing. The woman who brings lunch from home in reused glass containers, sometimes stopping by the nurse's lounge to reheat food in the clunky old microwave. I often joke that I'm the 3-outfit woman, because I rotate the same 3 professional outfits year-round, arranged carefully to look like a full wardrobe. No one there knows I'm the only daughter of Von Langston, the man behind Langston Development, the real estate empire that owns a quarter of Houston's skyline. I'm 29 years old, and for the past 3 years I've lived as someone completely different, just to test the man I once believed was the love of my life, Tyler Morgan. Tyler is a med student at Baylor College of Medicine. Tall, intelligent, with a dazzling smile. We met when I was volunteering at a community health outreach. He caught a stack of folders I nearly dropped, and just like that, it began. After a month, I moved into a small apartment near campus to drive him to class each morning. After 3 months, I started transferring him $5,200 every term for tuition. After a year, I was covering nearly all our living expenses. And I never once regretted it. I believed that if love was real, it shouldn't be tied to money. I wanted Tyler to love Mia, the ordinary woman, not Miss Langston with a black card and a 7-figure trust fund. I built a life around a humble $1,100 a month salary, with a 1-bedroom apartment where the ceiling fan rattled every night. But behind that curtain was another world. Every Friday night, I left the hospital at 6 p.m., drove to the underground garage of the Warwick Hotel, changed out of my faded work clothes into a silk dress, switched from my beat-up Toyota to the Range Rover I kept parked there on monthly lease. I drove straight to my family's lake estate, where floor-to-ceiling windows, a kitchen larger than my entire apartment, and a wine cellar Tyler never knew existed waited. My father knew about me and Tyler, and he never approved. "Sweetheart, how long are you going to keep living this double life?" he asked once as I entered his office, hair still smelling of parking garage fumes. "Until I know for sure that he loves me, not what's in my bank account." I sat down on the leather chair across from his desk. He sighed, pouring me a glass of Bordeaux he only opened for board meetings. "Real love doesn't need to hide, Mia. If he's the right one, you wouldn't need to pretend for 3 years." I glanced down at the delicate ring on my finger, a 3/10 carat diamond in a blue box that Tyler had dramatically presented to me in a cramped Mexican diner. I once believed it was a symbol of sacrifice, of how much he cared. What I didn't know was that the same week, he had spent nearly $1,900 on a Tag Heuer watch and lied that it was a knockoff from eBay. I lived 2 lives, 2 homes, 2 versions of myself, all to see if a man would love the woman counting every penny, or the one who could buy the entire building if she wanted to. 3 years. 6 terms. Over $31,000 transferred. I truly thought I was investing in our future. Until one day at his graduation party, an event I had secretly paid for, he looked at me and said, to the security guard, "She's not part of my family, please escort her out." And that's when everything began to fall apart. I started waking up every morning at 5:15, not because I was a morning person, but because Tyler wanted me to walk 30 minutes to the hospital and save on gas. He'd kiss my forehead and murmur, "Mia, you're the most frugal woman I know. With you by my side, I can get through anything." I'd smile, slip the pre-written check into his anatomy book, $5,200 for the new term. Underneath it I'd scribble, "Don't forget breakfast." He never asked how I always managed the money, never noticed the lunch bag I carried every day used to be on the cover of a fashion magazine, logo discreetly removed. I lived in an old midtown apartment, 12 minutes from the hospital, on foot. The walls peeled, the wood floors creaked under every step. But every Friday night, after my shift, I changed in the hospital restroom, tied my hair up, dabbed on soft pink lipstick, and ordered an Uber to the Warwick basement, where my Range Rover and tailored evening gown awaited. I'd then drive west to the gated Springwood Lakeside community. There they called me Miss Langston. The housekeeper waited at the door with a chilled martini and an investment report already tabbed for discussion. I often sat on the second-floor balcony, staring at the lights in the distance, wondering, if Tyler walked into this scene, with marble floors, a 10-seat dining table, and a private gym? Would he hold me because he loved me, or because he was overwhelmed? What does he actually serve as his Air Force? I always wanted to believe it was love. For 3 years, I convinced myself that if I kept the secret long enough, carefully enough, one day when the truth came out, he wouldn't feel betrayed. That he'd understand. I just wanted to know if real love could exist in a moldy kitchen, on a modest office salary. And then I'd give him everything. The penthouse I had bought near the hospital, overlooking Discovery Green Park. I'd kept the key in my desk drawer for 8 months. Sometimes I'd take it out, look at it for a while, then tuck it away again. "You've never taken me to see your place since we got engaged," Tyler once joked as he stirred instant ramen. "After your graduation?" I smiled. "There'll be a surprise." I wasn't lying. I was just hiding the truth. As graduation neared, Tyler talked more about our future. He wanted a new car, a trip to Italy before residency started, a beach wedding with over 200 guests. "We'll figure out the money, right?" he said, holding my hand with confident eyes. I looked at him, the man who truly believed he had built his life from hardship, while I had transferred nearly $32,000 to him over 3 years, not including rent, groceries, and supplements. Each week, I still cleaned out the fridge, made shopping lists, from almond milk to the B12 vitamins he liked. He thought it was duty. I once thought it was love. But then, things started to feel. His old fossil watch suddenly got replaced with a Longines. When I asked, he said it was an end-of-year sale. He came home late every Thursday for group internal med study, but his books were untouched. I didn't question him. I quietly slipped a GPS tracker into the car key I had given him. And then I saw it. He turned into a luxury apartment complex in River Oaks, 2 nights in a row. I sat on my worn sofa, staring at the numbers draining from my side account. The one nobody knew about. Each month, $5,200 disappeared, exchanged for promises that never came true. The only thing still intact was the engagement ring and a growing suspicion. That night, Tyler came home later than usual. I'd made his favorite fettuccine with creamy mushroom sauce and a fresh salad. I sat alone at the table. The candle burned halfway down, my phone lighting up with the time. 9:47 p.m. He texted, "Studying cardio phys with the group. Heading back soon." When the door opened at 10:36, I looked up to see him walk in, tired-faced, but with a scent on his collar that didn't belong to me. It was subtle, expensive, not like anything I had ever worn. "Sorry, the lab had issues," he said, leaning in to kiss my hair. "You're still up?" "Your favorite dish is waiting," I replied softly, as if talking to the air. He only smiled, took off his coat, skipped dinner, and headed straight to the shower. I grabbed my phone, opened contacts, my finger hovering over Thalia, my best friend in Baylor's HR office. I didn't call. Instead, I opened my photo album and zoomed in on a picture of Tyler from the spring festival a few weeks ago, the watch on his wrist in sharp focus. I zoomed in. Longines Master Collection, retail price nearly $2,000. A week later, I began quietly collecting evidence. The first receipt I found was stuffed in the pocket of his jacket on the couch. Azure Seafood Restaurant in the Heights. A place where you needed concierge reservations. Dinner for 2, $184, including a glass of rare wine. Date, Thursday. His supposed group study night. Said nothing, but I started watching his phone more. How he always placed it face down, silenced every notification. One evening, I overheard him from the bathroom. "Yeah, Saturday works, same spot, just don't text anything weird, she's getting suspicious." I walked in, feigning casualness. "Who was that?" "The dean," he said without blinking. "He invited me fishing, but I probably won't go." I nodded, smiled. But the next morning, after he left, I powered on his old phone, the one he had ditched last month after upgrading. He claimed it was wiped, but I knew better. And I was right. In the message archive, one name kept showing up. The most recent message read, "I still haven't forgotten that night at the Riverstone apartment. Bring the ring next time. I love how it feels." I stood frozen in the room, phone in hand, heart racing. Riverstone was a luxury complex near the convention center, the same one he once said was way out of reach because his tuition wasn't even fully paid. And the ring? I'd never seen him wear any ring besides the engagement one I gave him. Was he just performing for me this whole time? I didn't stop there. The following week, I found a receipt for a pair of white gold earrings, $1,250 from Livia & Co., dated the same night he came home late claiming to be stuck on I-610. I rewound my memory. No rain that night. Google Maps reported no traffic, and my Uber on the same route took just 18 minutes. I began seeing Tyler in an entirely different light. The sweet words now felt like scripted lines, tailored for whichever woman he was with. The surprise gifts he gave me? Leftovers from someone else's investment. But the biggest shock came during the med school student gala. I arrived late due to report duty. As I entered the ballroom, I saw Tyler laughing with a group of classmates. One of them asked, "Who'd you bring tonight, or still with the super frugal roommate?" Tyler burst out laughing. "Yeah, long-term roommate. Easier to call it that." "Roommate?" I walked up just as the group cracked up. Tyler turned, his eyes locking with mine for a split second before quickly regaining composure. "Mia, I was just telling them how you pack my breakfast every morning." I didn't respond, just gave a small nod, then used work as an excuse to leave early. But I had already begun planning. No tears, no rage, just cold, calculated clarity. I started with a simple message to someone Tyler had only vaguely mentioned once, an ex named Lindsay Walker. He told me they broke up because she was too controlling and jealous, that she once called the hospital over a suspicious message. Back then, I was naive enough to think he was the victim of a toxic relationship. Turns out, every bit of that jealousy had a reason. Lindsay agreed to meet at a small cafe in Montrose. She wore a crisp white blouse, hair in a tight bun, her gaze cautious as I approached. But after a few sentences, the air shifted. "I've seen your photo," she said, "in his wallet, on his phone. You're the fiancé?" "Not anymore," I said quietly, setting my latte down. "I need to know if what I suspect is true." Lindsay let out a dry, bitter laugh. "Let me guess, he told you he was struggling financially, needed someone who believed in him, right?" I nodded. "How much have you given him?" "Almost $33,000, I exhaled. Lindsay raised her eyebrows, then pulled out her phone. With a few swipes, she brought up a photo. An old Excel screenshot from her laptop. "I found this back when we were living together," she said quietly. "He was tracking everything, financial input, like we were some sort of projects. I only saw a few rows before he caught on and deleted it." I leaned in. Column A listed names: Emily, Nora, Lindsay. Column B, investment duration. Column C, total support. Column D, status, transitioning, near end, completed. A chill crept down my spine. I didn't want to believe it, but then I found out he had another Venmo account under an alias, getting money from a woman named Zoe. I even kept a photo of a wedding ring receipt. And it wasn't for me. I clenched my hands. "Do you know who Zoe is?" "No, but I know a Clarissa. She's a nurse, used to work with Tyler. Heard she transferred hospitals after rumors she broke up someone's relationship, but I know he made that up." That night, while Tyler slept, I quietly took the spare key he kept under his vitamin jar. I unlocked the bottom drawer of his filing cabinet, the one he always kept locked, calling it student intern paperwork. There were no files, just a slim, black leather notebook, light in weight but heavy with intent. I opened the first page. It wasn't a journal, just cold, methodical lists, like reading someone's personal investment portfolio. Page 1, Emily, dental assistant, $18,400. Relationship ended after 9 months. Transition to Lindsay. Page 2. Lindsay, clinic coordinator, $25,200. Considered stable, high commitment. Started asking long-term questions. Terminated early. Page 3. Mia, hospital administrator, $32,100. High support potential. No suspicion. No close family ties. Currently engaged. Viewed as potential residency sponsor. Maintained through graduation. My stomach turned as I flipped to the last page. Page 5. Bree, daughter of a board physician, unstable personal income but strong family influence. Owns a condo at Riverstone, currently testing intimacy progress. Evaluation. Viable replacement for Mia if residency path succeeds. I closed the notebook, my hands trembling. He didn't love me. I was just a long-term investment. And now, with a new stock offering higher returns, he was getting ready to liquidate me from his life. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just felt the thin sheet of ice beneath my feet finally crack. And I wasn't falling into an abyss, but into a truth I had tried so hard to ignore. The next morning, I texted Lindsay. We're not victims, we're evidence. Then I opened my laptop and created a spreadsheet. Names. Support totals. Every piece of documentation. I wasn't interested in calling the police. I wanted something deeper, something lasting. Something he'd remember for the rest of his life. I emailed Clarissa. She replied shortly after, with just 3 words. It's time. When I saw the italicized print on Tyler's graduation invitation. Celebrating Dr. Tyler Morgan, Hyatt Regency Grand Ballroom, Houston, I didn't need to ask who had planned the event. Technically, it was 3 separate event companies, each quietly owned by branches of Langston Holdings. One for venue design, Orchid and Onyx Events, one for catering, Madison & Co., and one for lighting and sound, Lux Sonic. I had acquired that one just a month earlier. Of course, Tyler knew none of this. I told him it was a small event organized by his co-workers, those who appreciated my help with admin paperwork. He just shrugged. As long as there's champagne and my mom gets a good seat. His mother. Margaret Morgan. A widow with a piercing stare and a voice cold enough to cut glass. We had met only twice in 3 years, and both times she looked at me like I was a clearance rack shirt in a designer boutique. I chose a black satin gown, square neckline, low back. Elegant, not flashy. Minimal makeup, hair in a high bun. The engagement ring, Tyler's half-year of saving gift, still sat on my finger, shining one last time before the curtain fell. Arrived late. The ballroom glowed under golden light. White flowers lined the tables and the dance floor shimmered under soft jazz. I stepped in, drawing curious glances and hushed whispers. Tyler stood in the center, wearing a tuxedo rented from Davis Formal Wear, grinning brightly, champagne flute in hand. Next to him, Margaret in a deep blue dress, pearls glowing at her neck. When he saw me, his smile faltered, then quickly returned, strained. I looked around. Not a single seat near the main stage had my name. I approached one of the event staff and quietly asked about the seating. He checked the list and frowned. I'm sorry, your name doesn't appear on the primary layout. I'm the one who signed the ballroom rental agreement, I said calmly, and the fiancé of the guest of honor. He nodded nervously and asked to double check before slipping into the back. I took a few more steps and approached Tyler's group of friends. Some looked uncomfortable. A tall brunette in a red dress leaned over and whispered something to Margaret. She turned around, eyes icy. Oh. Mia, right? She said, not bothering to hide her disdain. I thought you had a night shift. And head down the hall, I'm like, I was supposed to, but for a night this significant, I figured I should personally attend the closing act. Margaret narrowed her eyes, but before she could reply, Tyler stepped in. You made it, he said stiffly. I was going to call after the ceremony. To do what? Thank me for being left off the guest list? Before he could respond, Margaret cut in. It seems you're disrupting someone else's event? Shall I ask security to escort you out? I looked at her, then at Tyler, then at the woman in red, her hand resting a little too naturally on his arm. I nodded. Fine, but before I go, I have a little gift. I walked up to the main table, picked up Tyler's champagne glass, gently slid the ring off my finger and dropped it in. The diamond hit the bottom with a soft ting. But to me it rang out like the bell that ends a performance. "Congratulations, Dr. Tyler Morgan," I said clearly. "May you find plenty of new investors. Let's hope they don't ask for refunds." I turned away without waiting for a reaction. No explanations, no tears. Every step I took across that ballroom felt like walking through 3 years of my youth that had been used. But now, I was turning it into a weapon. The doors closed behind me, sealing off the noise, leaving me no longer the woman standing in someone else's shadow, but Mia Langston. And I was ready to be myself again. I didn't go back to the Midtown apartment that night. Instead, I drove straight to Langston Pearl Tower, took the private elevator to the 41st floor, where my penthouse had waited quietly for 3 years. The doorman gave me a respectful, slightly surprised nod. "Welcome back, Miss Mia. Been a while." "I'll be staying more often now," I replied calmly. "Have someone come clean in the morning." The 3,400-square-foot apartment opened before me in warm amber light. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the full skyline of downtown Houston, twinkling like a massive control panel of destiny. I called my father. "It's me." A brief silence on the other end, then his deep, steady voice. "Are you ready to be a Langston again? More ready than ever?" The next morning, I walked into St. Clair Medical Center. Not in my usual admin attire, but in a slate gray Max Mara suit. Hair tied back, a Hermes bag resting lightly on my shoulder. The receptionist blinked as I stepped into the executive boardroom, a place I had never entered as a staff member. I was there to see Dr. Ronald Kessler, director of the residency program. "Good morning, Miss Langston," he said, flipping through a file. "Ah, yes, we met at the Houston Medical Foundation Gala, didn't we?" "We did, and today, I'm here to discuss one of your residency candidates, Tyler Morgan." He frowned slightly. I placed a folder on his desk, copies of wire transfers I had made, a photo of Lindsay's spreadsheet, messages from Clarissa, receipts from other women, and finally, Tyler's own handwritten notes, detailing financial phases for each target. "I'm not here for revenge," I said. "I'm here to protect the hospital's reputation. This man didn't just manipulate women, he planned, tracked, calculated every dollar, every month. He's not someone who should represent any medical institution." 3 days later, Tyler was quietly removed from the residency list. No public explanation. I knew the news hit him like a slap at lunchtime, cold, decisive, and irreversible. But I wasn't done. I contacted Tessa Chapman, a lawyer specializing in personal financial abuse and power dynamics. I handed over everything: Lindsay's records, Clarissa's screenshots, and another woman named Zoe whom I identified through one of Tyler's alias-linked accounts. "We're not suing for money," I told Tessa. "We want justice and restitution for what he extracted through deceit." Tessa nodded. "This case is rare, clear, methodical, and backed by hard financial evidence. I'll handle the legal front, you handle the leverage." And that part I executed flawlessly. I traced Margaret's real estate network. Tyler's mother, who managed a brokerage office at the Haven Group, specializing in vacation homes for wealthy out-of-state clients. Langston Development, my family's company, was one of 3 exclusive land providers that the Haven depended on. All it took was one email and a follow-up call from our legal team. 3 weeks later, Margaret lost access to every lakeside listing under Langston's portfolio. A California investor she was courting for $1 million deal suddenly had a change of heart, lost confidence in the firm. No reason was named, but I knew. And so did she. Tyler started texting. First, "We need to talk." Then, "This is going too far." Finally, "You'll regret this if you keep pushing." I didn't respond. I forwarded every message to Tessa to strengthen our case for financial damages. None of this was retaliation. Always balance. Tyler once saw me as his highest-yielding investment. I was simply making sure he paid the price, financially and professionally. Just 3 months after the party, Tyler Morgan's name disappeared from all residency communications at St. Clair Medical Center. In the internal system, his file was marked no longer eligible, with a single line explaining the reason: failure to meet ethical standards. I knew he had scrambled to secure a spot at Greenwood Memorial, a small community hospital on the outskirts of town, nearly an hour outside Houston, with no accredited residency program tied to the state medical board. Place for those who need to start over. The only problem? Tyler had nothing left to start with. My legal team had done its job. Lindsay, Clarissa, and Zoe each received fair compensation. There was no scandal in the press, but just enough whispers that a few employers rescinded their offers. Somehow, photos of Tyler's old girlfriend investment spreadsheet began circulating in professional forums, no known source. I didn't need a public war, I just needed people to remember the name Tyler Morgan as a cautionary tale. By late October, I attended the Houston Medical Foundation Gala, an annual gathering of the biggest names in healthcare, finance, and philanthropy. The welcome banner read, "Ibble Diamore Sponsor Langston Healthcare Initiative." I didn't come with my father, I came alone. The dress I chose was a deep teal sheath, simple, form-fitting, and sharp as a blade. Hair in a low bun, jewelry minimal. I didn't need flash, my last name did the talking. I entered the grand hall to the sound of violins and the soft clink of crystal. Several attendees greeted me with handshakes, well wishes, and congratulations on officially becoming Chief Financial Officer of the Langston Foundation, tasked with reinvesting in ethical, transparent residency programs. Then I saw him, standing by the buffet table, wearing an ill-fitting rental suit, eyes panicked as they met mine. Tyler Morgan. No longer dazzling. No longer confident. Just a man realizing his mistake far too late. Next to him stood an older man in nursing scrubs, likely his supervising preceptor. No one approached them, no introductions, no interest. Tyler stared at me like I was a ghost. I simply smiled. I didn't approach, I didn't say a word. A few moments later, I was invited to give brief remarks. I used to believe that to be a great supporter you had to stand behind someone else, I said, scanning the room. But I've learned that those who stand up at the right time can change entire systems. I raised my champagne glass and turned toward the side of the room where Tyler still stood, as if frozen in time. I didn't say his name. But I knew, and he knew, and everyone in that room knew, who had truly been taken off the board. After the speech, a senior executive from the Texas Medical Board approached me. "Mia, I hope you'll consider joining our ethics review committee for next year's residency evaluations. We need people like you." And I nodded. On my way out of the gala, I caught Margaret's gaze, Tyler's mother, from across the table. She wore black, her eyes dimmed, like someone who had just lost not only her reputation but the future she had once tried to build through her son. She lowered her head. For the first time, she said nothing. I walked past her with steady steps, and this time, as my true self. No more hiding, no more proving anything to anyone. I was Mia Langston, the woman once labeled an unworthy roommate, a girl with nothing but kindness and an easily controlled investment. Now, I'm the one who helps decide the future of physicians. And when I raised my champagne glass that night, it wasn't to celebrate a victory. It was to honor myself for having the courage to let go of someone unworthy and reclaim who I truly was. Mia's story is a powerful reminder that kindness should never be an open door for exploitation. In a world full of calculation, preserving your dignity and clarity is what matters most. When betrayed, Mia didn't scream or seek dramatic revenge. She rose quietly, used her intellect and strength, and claimed justice. Sometimes, the most devastating revenge isn't making someone hurt. It's showing them you don't need them anymore, and haven't for a long time. What do you think of Mia's journey and the choices she made? Leave your thoughts below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more emotional, powerful stories about love, family, and discovering your true worth.